My name is Staff Sergeant Collins, and I'm a Rakkasan. I'm from Watertown, Tennessee. I graduated in 2006. I went to school for about a year in Nashville State Community College and kind of figured out that wasn't really for myself. And I enlisted in the Army. A lot of guys from my class were, there's only about 50 of us in my class. There's about 10 of us that are in the Army or in the armed forces somewhere. And I'm just from a very patriotic area. I finished basic in AIT, and I PCS to Fort Hood, Texas. I was in 4-5 Air Defense Artillery. They have a totally different mission from what we have here in the Rakkasans. The only two places they really go are Korea and to Kuwait. I TCS to Korea for a year. That was a big thing. I was 20 years old when I went. I'd never been outside of the United States, and that was just a big eye opener for me, getting to actually see a different culture and actually get to actually talk to different people. And I actually TCS back to Fort Hood, and then I re-enlisted to come here to Fort Campbell, being that it's closer to my family. And then I also wanted to be a part of the 101st. At that time, I had no idea what a Rakkasan was. I got here. I chose to come here to Fort Campbell, and then once I got here, the Rakkasans were already in Afghanistan. They had been in Afghanistan for about 5 months. I got here in June, and I was in Afghanistan by the end of July. I wasn't sure I was coming to Leader Battalion at that time, but I got to FOB Salerno, and they said, "Hey, you're going to Leader," and they said, "Good luck." They're having some issues down there in Paktika, but during our time there in Paktika, we really turned it around, I think, and then we chose soon thereafter to go down to Kandahar. General Petraeus, I guess, handpicked us. He knew Colonel Harmon then, and we went down there, and it was a big thing for us. I know nobody had really been into that part of the world, or at least that part of Afghanistan, in a long time. That was in 2010. Specifically, we went down there and worked with actually 2nd Brigade with Strike. They called us the Rakkasan. We were down there for about 3 months. While we were down there, we found, I believe it was 168 IEDs. We captured many high-value individuals. A lot of my memories were just very long days, especially when we went down to Kandahar. We were working probably 20-hour days. We just kind of figured out how to get after the enemy, and we got after them. And like it was a big deal, I know, for the battalion, because we spent, from the first unit that actually went into the Horn of Panjwai to the day that we pulled everybody out, it had been 55 days since that they had been out in the Horn of Panjwai. There was no coming back to the COP and doing resupplies. The guys were out there for 55 days straight. Like, we had to put together uniforms to get out there to the guys, like just uniforms off of our backs to try to support them with everything we could. We were resupplying every night with batteries and water and you name it. We were getting it out there. I was a sergeant at the time, and that was my first deployment. My wife now, we weren't married at the time, but that was our first deployment together. It was pretty tough. We were working so much, like 20-hour days, and it was really hard to break away from a lot of the things that we were doing inside of the TOC. And the biggest thing was just trying to stay in contact with our family. It was pretty difficult at the time, and I could tell it was starting to weigh on a lot of the guys. We had one staff sergeant. He was wounded while we were down there, and then we had another sergeant that he actually was killed while we were down there at the time. And that was a real eye opener for myself, not dealing with that towards the beginning of the deployment, since I missed the first portion. Overall, we're just trying to make it an overall better place and try not to lose anybody in the process, and that was kind of an eye opener to myself. The biggest thing was the relationships that I built while we were deployed. You know, you really get to know a lot of the guys that you share the foxhole with. So a lot of the guys in the S2 section, we were very close, pretty close-knit family. I mean, you name it, we probably did it together. I can see why people like it here in the Rakkasans. The Fort Campbell's a great post. They take care of us here. They really do. I know we're one of the most deployed units in the United States Army, us in 10th Mountain. And I know we're just back and forth all the time, but our home team here is very good. I've been on the 2 deployments now, and both times it's been a good reception back home. The people here love us here in Fort Campbell. So recent deployment was a lot different from the first. I did know a lot more going into this one. I felt like we were very prepared for it. We kind of knew that we were gonna fall in onto a more advised mission this time. It was a much better deployment for us. We retrograded millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment that had just been kind of stockpiling over the last 10 years that we've been in Afghanistan. It was more just oriented on what can we do to help once we leave, or if we are in a reduced capacity, what are we going to do? And that just helped. I think it helped set our Afghan partners up for some success this time. And I know for my family-wise, it was pretty tough. It was a little bit longer of a deployment for me. It was only 9 months, but I only did 7 my first deployment. I think that helped us keep our eye on the goal that we were there to do, and I think that helped a little bit. And knowing that we didn't have to stay for another 3 months like the standard 12-month deployment that we get into. I watched a lot of my guys. They grew. Being an intel analyst, we get a lot of training done, but to actually do our job and see the real effects on it, being in a deployed state helps us out a lot. I just watched them all just kind of become better soldiers and better intel analysts over our last deployment. I've been here for a long time. I got here as a specialist promotable. I've had some great leaders. Captain Jarvis, Sergeant Vinoski, Sergeant Anway, Captain Gray, a few other fellow NCOs. They've kind of helped me along the way to kind of push me. I like what I do. I like being an NCO. I love the Rakkasans. I love being here at Fort Campbell. Some people, I just finished out processing, and there was two guys that said that they just couldn't wait to get off of Fort Campbell, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, what did I do? Why am I leaving? But at the same time, you kind of you can't stay here for all that time. You do need that change. It's good for your development. That doesn't mean that you can't turn around and come right back here 3 years from now, but you do need to continue to grow, and that's what NCOs do. They need to push their soldiers to make sure that they're continuing on that growth, and they don't just get stuck doing the same thing over and over and over, and they're challenging themselves all the time. The other brigades under the 101st, they all look at us and they say that we're very prideful, and we are. We're a very good unit. Sometimes we're a little over the top, but when you see that Tory, you think of, it's the gateway to honor.